just as Piaget thought that young children were not very good at understanding the physical world and physical and biological causality, he also thought that they weren't very good at understanding the perspective of other people. So the kind of classic Piagetian story was that children couldn't really take the perspective of another person until really well into the school age years, until they were about age 9. And the test that Piaget used to try to argue for this was something called the Three Mountains task. If you go to Geneva, which is where Piaget was, Geneva is surrounded by mountains, and evidently the fact that the mountains look different depending on which part of Geneva you're in is what inspired Piaget to do this task. So what he did was he showed children a picture of the three mountains from different kinds of perspectives. So he showed the children a little diorama first of three mountains in a particular spatial configuration, and then he asked the children what the mountains would look like if you were seeing them from the other side of the diorama. And he found that up to age 9, children had a great deal of difficulty with that. They had a hard time predicting what you would see from the other position. Now, of course, that could mean that the children can't take the perspective of another person, but it could also mean that they have a hard time with these kind of complicated spatial relationships. And in fact, it turns out that it's more likely to be the latter, that they have a hard time with the spatial relationships, than it is that they can't take the perspective of the other person. Because John Flavel did a much simpler version of this task. Now you didn't actually have to say which mountain was in front of the other mountain. What you had to do was just to say whether someone could see something or not. So the way that Flavel's task went is kind of like this, where, so if you take this mic, and the child sat on one side of the screen, and the experimenter sat on the other side of the screen, and the experimenter would do something like this, put the object on one side and say, now, can you see that microphone? Can I see that microphone? They did it with little toys instead. So, of course, if the child's on this side, then they can't see the microphone, but the experimenter who's on this side can see the microphone. Or vice versa, they put the object on this side and they'll say, can I see it and can you see it? And again, the child on this side could see it and the experimenter on that side couldn't see it. Is that clear to everybody? How that experiment worked? And what Flavel found was that even 2.5-year-olds could solve that task. So even 2.5-year-olds would say that the experimenter could see it if it was on his side, but the experimenter couldn't see it if it was on the other side of the screen. And the same for the child. Okay? So the children did seem to be able to take the experimenter's perspective in a simple case with just a simple screen and the object on either side of the screen. So even 2.5 and 3-year-olds could do that. A slightly harder task, what Flavel did was do the same thing, but now instead of having an opaque screen, there was actually a colored filter. So there would be a blue transparent colored filter on the table. And then the children would see a yellow duck on either side of the transparent filter. Now if you see a yellow duck behind a blue filter, it's going to look green, right? So again, what he did was ask the children, okay, how does this look to you? Does this look green or does this look yellow? And then how does it look to the person on the other side of the filter? Does it look green or does it look yellow? Now I should say what he did was he let the children go back and forth to begin with, so they didn't have to figure out the blue and yellow. They actually saw that it looked yellow from one side and blue from the other side. But then the important point was that then they could predict that another person on the other side would see it as blue, even though they saw it as yellow themselves, or vice versa. That also clear to everybody? And again, 3.5 to 4-year-olds solved this task. So it was a little harder than level 1, but children were still getting this task right. And that suggested that they could take the perspective of another person in a simpler case where there was just the visual perspective of another person, in a simpler case where there was just a screen. So by the time the children are about 3, they seem to be able to understand that someone else could see something different than they do. Also in the time when they're about 3, Wellman and Rodriguez looked at whether children understood the interrelationships between their perceptions, what they could see, and their emotions, and their desires. Now remember, when we were talking about the baby's theory of mind, the baby's understanding of mind, we saw that the babies already by 18 months understand about desires, about what people want, and understand about emotions. And we just saw from the Flavel experiments that the 2.5-year-olds understand about perception. But the question was, could the children put all 3 of those things together? So what Wellman and Rodriguez did was they asked children questions like this. Here's Anna, and Anna really likes Cheerios, and she really doesn't like cornflakes. And here's this closed box, and Anna doesn't know what's inside it. She thinks that there are, if she opens it up and sees that there are cornflakes, will she be happy or will she be sad? So in other words, they combined, if you think about that question, you have to combine, here's what she wants cornflakes versus Cheerios. Here's what she sees what's in the box, or she doesn't see what's in the box, and here's how she feels, she's happy or she's disappointed. And what they discovered was that the children could coordinate all 3 of those mental states to give their answers. So they say, for instance, well, she doesn't see what's in the box, so she doesn't know that there are Cheerios or cornflakes in there. Then she won't be particularly happy or particularly disappointed to get the box because she doesn't know what's inside of the box. Whereas if she likes the Cheerios and she sees Cheerios, she'll be happy. If she doesn't like the Cheerios and she sees Cheerios, she'll be disappointed, and so on and so forth. Everybody got that? So the children seem to be able to coordinate information about emotions, information about perceptions, and information about desires to predict what someone else would see and feel and do. Okay. And this is also with 3-year-olds. Now, remember, when we were talking about methods, I'm going to go over a little bit of this again, although we talked about it then. We talked about, and we had that little video of this false belief task. So the false belief task is a task that tries to see whether children understand not just that someone else could see something different from them, or that someone else could want something different from them, or that someone else could feel differently than they do, but that someone else could actually believe something different from what they believe themselves. So the false belief task is this task with the pencils and the candies, where you look at the candy box and it turns out that there are really pencils inside. And then you have to predict, if John in the daycare sees the box all closed up like this, what will he think? Will he think that there are pencils inside, or will he think that there is candy inside? So that's the false belief test. And children very characteristically now in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies with lots of different variations on how to do this, 3-year-olds fail this task. They say that the other person will know what's inside the box, even though they understand emotion, desire, and perception. So they start out understanding emotion, desire, and perception. We just saw that in the Flavel tasks, but they still don't understand about belief. And that's a very consistent and robust effect. Now, if it was just that children fail this one task, you might think, well, okay, there might be lots of reasons for failing that task. But what's more interesting is that there's a whole bunch of other tasks that children fail at about the same time. So the 3-year-olds are getting this wrong, but 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are getting it right. So that seems to be the next development. So there's one development, you look at 2 and 3-year-olds, they understand emotion, perception, and desire. They don't understand belief, but 4-year-olds also seem to understand belief. And 4-year-olds also seem to understand some other things as well. So I mentioned this also in the method section. This is the Hollywood Rock appearance reality task that John Flavel did. And this is when you show the children a sponge rock, a rock that's made out of sponge, or golf balls that look like soap, or any number of other deceptive-looking objects. And you say to the children, what does this actually look like? Does it look like a sponge, or does it look like a rock? And what is it really? Is it really a sponge, or is it really a rock? Now, that's a different question than the false belief question. But if you think about it, it kind of is calling on the same ideas. It's calling on this understanding of the fact that there can be a difference between the way the world really is and the beliefs or thoughts that you have about it. So what Flavel found was at the same age that children are failing in passing false belief, they're failing in passing this appearance reality task. So the younger children tend to say, it looks like a rock, it really is a rock, or it looks like a sponge and it really is a sponge, and the older children say, no, it looks like a rock, but it really is a sponge. And that ability is correlated with the ability to understand to the false belief test. So here's an example of two quite different kinds of tasks, but they seem to be tapping the same conceptual change in the preschool period. Here's another example of one of these tasks. And this is a task about understanding where beliefs come from. So this is about the sources of belief, and this is Danielle O'Neill who did this work. And what she did was she showed the children a big red tunnel that had an object in it, and the children didn't know what the object was. It could be a cup, for example. And then the children learned about what the object was in 3 different ways. So sometimes what they did was they put their hands in the tunnel and they felt the cup and they figured out that, oh yeah, it must be a cup. Sometimes what happened was the experimenter said to them, there's a cup in here, and sometimes what happened was the experimenter picked up the tunnel, and sure enough, there was a cup inside. Now the question was, all the children, then when you asked them immediately afterwards, all the children said, yeah, there's a cup inside. But then what O'Neill did was to ask the children, how do you know that there's a cup inside? Did you see it, or did you feel it, or did I tell you about it? And then in some other work that O'Neill and I did together, we did sort of something similar, but now we also had, did I see it, did you see it, or did you feel it, or did you figure it out from a clue? So we looked at all the different ways that children could understand these things. And what O'Neill found was that the children, the 3-year-olds, couldn't differentiate between the different sources of their information. So if they'd seen it, they might say they felt it. If they'd heard about it, they might say that they'd seen it. But the 4-year-olds could. So the 4-year-olds would say, yes, it's a cup, and I know that because I felt it, or I know that because I saw it, or I know that because you told me about it. And again, that ability was correlated with how well the children did on false belief tests and appearance reality tests. Yeah? Right, that's a good question, and we'll get to that in a minute, about why do we see this change between the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Well, the fact that all 3 of these tasks seem to be changing at the same time and to be correlated to one another suggests that it's something pretty abstract about how the children think about the world and our perception of the world. So in all of these cases, what the children seem to have to do is to figure out that there's a kind of complicated process that connects us to the world. So when you see something, it isn't as if just seeing it lets you know everything that there is to know about it. It depends on how you've seen it and whether you've made inferences about it or just immediately perceived it. There's a complicated story that links your thoughts and beliefs to the world. And one way that people have described this sometimes is it's like the 3-year-old has a kind of bullet theory of knowledge, which is there are things out there in the world, they're true, and if you just put yourself in the path of those things, then you'll know about them. Kind of as if truth was this bullet that was coming from the things out there in the world and going in a straight line into your brain. And the older children, it's kind of creepy, but it gives you the idea. So you're basically just standing there and the world is sending out these truth bullets into your brain. The older children, on the other hand, seem to recognize that it's not quite as simple as that. Your brain is actually doing a lot of the work. So your mind is sitting there and taking in data and interpreting it and drawing conclusions about what the world is like. It isn't just that the world is just directly bombarding you with the truth about what it's like. Is that clear to everybody? No difference? So it seems as if the children's whole idea about how the mind works is different for the 4-year-olds and for the 3-year-olds. And the sources task, by the way, is particularly interesting because it's got implications for things like children's eyewitness testimony. So if you think about children who are, say, testifying in a child abuse case, that's a case where the children might say, yes, I saw that teacher do something, where really what happened was that someone else afterwards had told them that the teacher did something. And the children might be completely sincere in genuinely saying that they thought that they had actually seen it, not just been told about it later on, because they're confused about the sources of their information. So it's a very relevant finding for things about things like children's testimony. Yeah?
Would they still be confused about it if they remembered the event later when they were able to differentiate just before? Would they be able to say, like, oh, she told me that?
When they were older, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or would they, like, not remember?
Well, it turns out that even adults have some difficulty if there's a long interval remembering the source of their information. So the interesting thing is with 3-year-olds, basically you can ask them a second after you've given it to them and they'll get it wrong. With adults, if you ask them right away, as soon as they've seen it, they get it right. But if, say, you ask someone 6 months later, then they also tend to make these kinds of source mistakes. So there's something very typical about the fact that we have a hard time remembering where we got information from. It's actually it also has dangerous implications for people who are writing or studying, because a lot of times in a lab, for example, this is something that happens all the time in a scientific lab, is I'm sitting there with my graduate students, and then a month later someone says, yeah, well, that idea I had about such and such. And then one of the other students said, wait a minute, that wasn't your idea. That was my idea. And the person says, no, it was my idea. I was the one who said it in the lab meeting. And then, of course, I, as the faculty member, say, no, it was my idea. I was the one who suggested that we do that experiment. Or in things like plagiarism cases, again, something you really have to watch out for. You might read something and then decide later on that it was actually your own idea, and it's only when you look back that you realize that you actually had gotten the idea from something else that you'd read. So even for adults, keeping track of sources of where your information came from is hard, but it seems to be especially hard for children. I tell a story about this. Alexei, my oldest child, when he was in kindergarten, came back from kindergarten and said that he started telling stories about this incredibly mean vice principal that they had, and he was really, really mean, and he was mean to the kids all the time. And then the stories kind of escalated. So now it was the vice principal was yelling at the kids, and then it was that the vice principal was hitting the kids. At which point we got very concerned and we were going to come into the school. And he said, and the other thing is that when the vice principal's in his cave, he eats the heads of the bats too. And then he thought, well, you know what? Probably the vice principal isn't sitting in a cave eating the heads of bats. And it seemed like what happened was there was this kind of kindergarten urban legend about the mean vice principal that had turned into this whole story about all the terrible things that the vice principal did. Now, actually, knowing that vice principal, that urban legend was actually probably capturing something that was right about the guy's personality, but it really wasn't that Alexei had seen him eating the heads of bats. Okay, so let's have an explanation break now, and I guess we sort of got, this was supposed to be something that you were working out yourself, but we can repeat it. Why would children between 3 and 4 behave similarly on these tasks? And maybe actually we can anticipate what's coming next and say, what could be happening in the children's world that would lead to this change between 3 and 4? So we can ask the question about where, exactly the question that we just asked before, which is where is it that this understanding of the mind comes from? If there's these changes between 3 and 4, what's happening out in the child's world that's leading to this big change in the way that they think about other people and perspective taking and the rest? Well, one way that you could ask this question is that you could actually look at social influences. After all, our understanding of other people depends a lot on what our social experiences of other people are like. And one of the interesting findings that's come out is that younger siblings characteristically do better on these theory of mind tasks than older siblings do. And that's striking. I can see the younger siblings in the audience are sort of, pumping fists and feeling happy about it. Now, hold on a second, guys, because that's striking because older siblings, like me, for example, actually do better on things like IQ tests and academic performance. So, yeah, so most of the time, older siblings rule, or anyway, older siblings are bossy. So on most tasks, things like IQ or vocabulary or language, the older siblings do better. But when you look at these theory of mind tasks in particular, the younger siblings do better. And interestingly, the bigger family you come from, so the more older siblings you have, the better you do. So someone like Bunny, who you're going to meet in the preschool, who's the youngest of 3, does even better on understanding other people's minds. Now, there's different ideas about why exactly it might be that the younger siblings are doing better than the older siblings. But one idea is that the children of younger siblings are much more likely to experience differences between their minds and the minds of their older siblings than they are to experience differences between their own minds and the minds of, say, their moms. So moms tend to be pretty generous with babies about saying, oh, that was really smart, darling, or oh, you want that, whereas the big brothers are very happy to say, you dummy, that's wrong, I know the answer to that, and you're wrong, or, well, you want to do that? Tough, we're actually going to do what I want to do. Another possibility is that comes from a quote that I like that evidently comes from Napoleon. Napoleon said that the valet always knows more about his master than the master does about his valet, which seems to be fairly profoundly true, and it may be that the same thing's true about older siblings and younger siblings. So the younger sibling really needs to know what's going on in the mind of that big brother just for the sake of his own survival and well-being. Partly, I think, because then that lets him manipulate the big brothers in a more subtle way, and whereas the older siblings can just kind of use brute force, they don't have to actually figure out what's going on with the younger siblings. And as you'll see when you look at the videos, Andreas Bunny, who's the youngest of my 3 siblings, was very, very, very good at manipulating people in a charming way, especially his mother. And according to his many girlfriends, continues to have this skill. So one thing seems to be sibling position. Another thing seems to be that children are learning from the conversations that they're hearing around them. And this is work that Judy Dunn did. And what she did was look at the difference between younger siblings and older siblings, but she also just looked more generally and recorded the conversations that families just had around the dinner time. Around the dinner table. And it turns out that different families differ in how much they talk about mental states. So in my ex-husband's very kind of waspy family, they'd sort of say, well, pass the salt or pass the pepper, but they didn't talk very much about feelings. Whereas in my New York Jewish family, all we did was talk about feelings. So everyone was always talking about how they felt and how the other person made them felt and why that wasn't good the way the other person made them felt and so forth. And it turns out that difference between how much people just talk at the dinner table about how they feel or why someone did something or was it because they were like this or was it because they were like that, that difference makes a difference in how likely the children are to solve these theory of mind tasks. So children in families where everyone's always talking about everybody's feelings are more likely to solve these tasks more quickly than children in families where they don't talk as much about feelings. Now, it may be that those other children are actually learning practical important things like how to get on in the world and make decisions without worrying about your feelings all the time, but we don't actually know that that's true. And in fact, there's some evidence that even, the name of the person, this is Elizabeth Means, M-E-I-N-S, who did these experiments. And she actually showed that if you look at very young babies, you looked at 6-month-olds, again, mothers varied in terms of how much